It's Mindset Monday, coming at you with energetic and tactical tips to help you level up your life and your week. Let's get it. Did you know we are in the midst of the Great Resignation? 4.3 million Americans left their jobs in August without seeking a new one. If you want to become a corporate dropout like me, but you need help creating an exit plan, I can help. Whether you need corporate exit coaching, business coaching, or you're seeking help to step into the best version of yourself, I'd love to connect with you. Listeners of the Corporate Dropout podcast can book a complimentary discovery call with me. Visit alessiacitro.com/dropout. That's ALESSIACITRO.com/dropout to book your free coaching call today. Hello, friends. So today's episode is one I decided to record at the last minute. I felt called and inspired to because I realized we're coming up on All Souls Day. And so before we dive in, there's a couple things I want to acknowledge. I'm going to be talking about my faith and my connection to the spiritual realm today. And just know, whatever you believe or you don't believe, I accept and support your point of view. And I know that what I'm about to say may be, deemed blasphemous or offensive or unpopular to some people. I truly believe that all roads lead to Rome when it comes to faith and religion. So just know that that is the lens and the perspective through which I'm sharing today. I'm also going to be pointing to some science around epigenetics as well. And so with that out of the way, let's get to it. So November 1st is All Saints Day, the day of this episode dropping. And it is a day that commemorates all saints and martyrs, both known and unknown. Tomorrow, November 2nd, is All Souls Day. And this is a day where Roman Catholics observe and remember their loved ones who have passed on. At the same time, Dia de los Muertos runs from Halloween to November 2nd. And I had this other episode ready to go, and I just knew I needed to record this. I needed to speak on something that I have only recently in the past year or so begun to explore and knowingly experience, and that is ancestral wisdom and ancestral gifts. It is worth mentioning that as I record this, I have my hand on my great-grandmother's Bible. I never met her, but I can feel her energy and her support and her spirit. I'm also wearing my other great-grandma's wedding ring, and I have on a necklace that belonged to my paternal grandmother that she received for her baptism. So I am channeling all of the female ancestral energy, and I hope that they can allow me to deliver a message today that will be helpful for those of you that hear it. So my first experience with ancestral wisdom and knowing that I had a spirit guide or a guardian angel perhaps was this past December 2020, after my grandpa passed away. After his passing, I received so many signs from him, and I still do. Almost every day, there is something that is Grandpa saying, "Hey, what's up?" And I have to share this sign that I got the day of his service. It's one of the most powerful experiences of my life. So my grandpa passed away on December 13th, and shortly thereafter, they had the service in my grandparents' home because of COVID, right? It was very, very small. So it was just my grandma, my mom, my aunts and uncles, and the spouses. So none of my cousins were there. It was just very, very small, very intimate. So at the time that this is taking place, I decide I am going to hold my own vigil, and I'm going to pray at the same time that the service is taking place and just kind of meditate and channel Grandpa, because space and time are but an illusion, right? So what I decide to use is my great-grandmother's Bible. So this was my grandpa's mother's Bible. Her name was Margaretha. And I have this German Bible of hers from 1914. And I only recently got this. My parents were remodeling their home a couple years ago, and so my mom was cleaning out everything. Like they did a full gut, right? And as she's cleaning things out, she finds this old Bible and she gave it to me because she knows how into these sorts of things I am. So I had flipped through it before briefly because, it's in pretty good condition, but it's definitely not something that you want to be like thumbing through on a regular basis. The entire Bible is in German. And I had opened it before. So on this particular day, when I go to hold it for my grandpa's service, out falls a bookmark in English. And it is Psalm 23, the shepherd's psalm. I'm going to read it to you here real quick. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Oh, I just love that so much. The part too, that God makes us to lie down in green pastures and that he'll lead us besides the still waters. Oh, that just like fills my cup so much. But anyway, this bookmark falls out and I'm like, oh, okay. Like that seems like a sign from Grandpa. Like, thank you for that. This is the Psalm that I'm going to pray. And so I do that. And, maybe Psalm 23 is kind of common for services, but here's where this kind of gets crazy. So to me, that was a clear sign. And afterwards, I text my mom and I say, you won't believe this. Great grandma's German Bible, there was a English bookmark that fell out of Psalm 23. And that was a clear sign from Grandpa in my mind. And she said, well, you want to know what's wild? That is the Psalm that your grandma chose to be read at the service. I mean, again, maybe this is a common verse for a funeral. I don't know. But of all the Bible verses, that's the one my grandma chose. What are the odds of that? So I'm sharing this because I think if we are open and aware that we do have this ancestral wisdom and these ancestors guiding us and helping us along the way, the more open you are and aware of that fact, the more clearly the signs will come through. So I want to talk a little bit about how you can use what your ancestors have given you to live a fuller, better life. So if you listen to episode 17, that was with Dr. Valerie Rain, she is incredible. And if you didn't listen to that interview and her business tip, please go back and do that. It's episodes 17 and 18. Dr. Valerie discovered what is called patriarchy stress disorder. And essentially, it's that we inherit trauma from our ancestors. So in the example of patriarchy stress disorder, many of us are the first in their entire lineage to have independence, to have a career, to be making an income, to have choices around, how many children we would have or who we would marry. I mean, that I think has been in place for a few generations for most of us. But this income and being able to express ourselves and be seen and be visible, that's all pretty new. And so many women, myself included, have this like this constant anxiety and maybe depression because of all of this inherited trauma over generations. But there's also really wonderful things that we inherit. So I wanted to read an excerpt from an article that talks about this, and it reads as such. One area that science is beginning to catch up on is the area of inherited experiences. Since scientists first discovered DNA, the hereditary material passed down through generations in humans, animals, and plants, it was believed that our genes were, quote unquote, set in stone or unchangeable by our lived experiences. This idea is beginning to change through the emergence of the field of epigenetics. Epigenetics shows how environmental influences, both positive and negative, influence the expression of our DNA and how these changes can also be passed down through generations. There's an example that if you listen to episode 17, you heard, but it sure bears repeating. So I'm going to say it again here. There was a study that was done that Dr. Valerie shared. It's in the book as well. And it is about mice and cherry blossoms. So in this particular study, mice were mildly shocked with electric shock. And at the same time, the smell of cherry blossoms was piped into their cages. Now, those mice had babies, and the babies had babies. So the mice's children and grandchildren were then exposed to the scent of cherry blossoms. And despite the fact that the babies and the grandbabies were not shocked, they still had a trauma response, a stress response at the sheer smell of cherry blossoms. So that trauma got encoded and passed down. But at the same time, there are wonderful things that get passed down through our ancestors. So I'm quoting from the same article that I did above. It says, it's important to keep in mind our ancestors passed down tools that were intended for our survival. While the epigenetic signature on our genes can be influenced by negative influences, such as toxins or stress, it can also be influenced by positive influences, such as loving, supportive relationships and connections. Often, scientific research has focused on traumatic experiences such as abuse, famine, genocide, or poor health in future generations. But at the same time, our ancestors who experienced this have also passed down tools for resilience, strength, love, and survival. If you go back and listen to the episodes with Dr. Valerie, she shares how her grandparents were in Russia enduring and surviving brutal conditions during World War II, and how she feels like that really equipped her with a lot of the grit and resilience that she has today. I totally believe that. I think it's part of why me being first generation American on my dad's side and probably fifth generation or so on my mom's, I think that inherited grit and bravery and resilience of immigrating is what enabled me to move to Chicago without much of a plan, and really with like just this courage and belief that it would work. I knew it would work because those that had come before me had done it, right? And so I think if you can tap into the sorts of things that your ancestors survived and endured, it can really be a great source of strength. Speaking of the gifts that we inherit too, and this is kind of a silly example, but I'm going to tell it anyway. So my daughter Mila loves the movie Coco. I love it too. I think it might be my favorite Disney movie. I love the music. That's something funny about me. I actually love mariachi music. But I love the music, the message, all of it. It's so good. So if you haven't seen it, the main character, Miguel, is a living boy who loves music, even though his family prohibits it, which is a whole story. And he ultimately discovers that the origin of his talent and love for music is his great-grandfather. So go watch the movie if you haven't. It's all about Dia de los Muertos, so it's a great time to do it. And it just is a great example that so many of us are carrying around wonderful gifts and talents that we can attribute to those who came before. The other thing that I want to share too that's really cool, I learned this while I was pregnant with Mila. So while I was carrying Mila, should she choose to have children, my future grandchildren were also inside my womb. Did you all know this? So the way that this works, when you are pregnant and you have a daughter growing inside of you, she also has eggs in her. Like when a baby girl is born, all of the eggs that they'll ever have are already in place. So The eggs that will become my grandbabies one day, like I carried them. And so if I went through pregnancy, extremely stressed out or enduring a famine or global economic depression or something like that, that would probably imprint on those eggs, right? And on the baby that I'm carrying. But likewise, if I had a wonderful pregnancy, which I did, and felt so much love and so much support and was so intentional about really every piece of it, I know that that too is going to get passed down to them. So definitely check that out if you haven't heard of that before. The fact that you have been in your maternal grandmother's womb, it's pretty cool, I think. So, in closing, I invite all of you listening to think of all of those who have come before you. What did your ancestors endure and survive in order for you to be here? I mean, if you think about it, it's truly like each of us is such a miracle. Like what are the odds of all of these hardships that people used to have to endure back in the day? The odds of them surviving that, and now here you are. It's just amazing, I think. It is awe-inspiring. And, in addition to like the things that they endured, also think of all of the love and the joy across those generations. And now their lives have led to you. So what is it that you can channel or take from their lived experiences to make the most of yours today? Are there maybe recent ancestors who, if you become open to it, you can begin to feel their energy and their support and their wisdom helping to guide you? And, I think of, I thought of this actually quite a bit in COVID of, wow, this is my generation's really like hard, scary thing. The first one, the global recession in 2009, that was kind of dicey too, but this was like on another level, right? But I thought of all the things that they had gone through, right? I mean, world wars, the Great Depression, the Spanish flu, immigrating, all of those things, right? And I really feel like that is part of why I am a very resilient and gritty person. So my wish for you today and every day, I want to just say a prayer and hold space for you to be able to heal what needs to be healed, to leverage the gifts that you have been endowed with and anointed with, and just to know that if you are a parent now, or if you become one, that you will be passing on resilience, love, and so much more to your children and all of those in your lineage who come after you. So I hope that you can make it a great day and make this life an epic one. Have a great day, friends. What you track grows. Grow what matters with the 90-day cycle to new habits journal and stay focused on what will move your business forward. Pick up your copy today at 90dayhabits.co and use code CITRO, that's CITRO, for 10% off. Thank you so much for listening to the show. If today's episode added value to your life in some way, please subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share it with someone who needs this. I'd love to connect with you on Instagram and hear how the show has inspired you. So tag me or slide into the DMs. Find me at Corporate Dropout Official or Alacia Citro. That's ALESSIACITRO and 2 underscores. Until next time, remember that you're a badass, stay focused, stay hungry, and dare to drop out.